As part of Northwell's Health Center for Gun Violence Prevention, we work hand in hand with the community and especially schools to be able to educate folks on firearm injury prevention. Without students like you, we really can't make a big impact on this issue in the community. So I want to thank all of you for all the hard work you've done in putting together a research project around gun violence prevention and winning the Medical Marvels competition. You all are really an inspiration to other students across the state, across the city, across the country. You are going to serve as motivation for those students to be student ambassadors, to take us forward and help us figure out solutions when it comes to gun violence prevention.
I also want to add my congratulations and thanks for what you've done and for what you're going to do. I'd really like a chance to get to know you a little bit as we enter into a little conversation here. And so maybe each of you could take a moment and introduce yourselves and what's become so important about this topic that we're all working on together. Jessica?
My name is Jessica Darcy. I'm in 10th grade. I go to Baldwin High School. And after completing this research and project, I realized that the country needs to do more in ensuring gun safety among, I think, the younger generation. I have a twin sister, and I feel like if anything were to happen having to do with firearms in a school, and if she's out, it's scary. And I want to make sure that she's safe, that my friends are safe, that my older siblings are safe, and that these three are safe as well.
I'm Brayna Palmer. I'm a 9th grader here at Baldwin High School, and this is so important to me because, like Jessica was saying, I do have friends and family that I want to be safe out there in the world, and just even people that I don't know. Every life is so important, and so many lives are lost to this issue, so that's why this is so near to my heart.
My name is Rochelle Saunders. I'm 15 years old. I'm in 10th grade, and I go to Baldwin High School. So after doing research and finding out how much our country has experienced gun issues and gun deaths, I really find it important to protect all of us as citizens, as Americans. And also, I couldn't imagine if something were to happen to my school or to my friends or to my family.
My name is Thalia Consoleon. I'm a 9th grader at Baldwin High School, and just to piggyback off of what the other three said, as students here, you obviously hear in the news, unfortunately, a lot of things going around that have to do something with firearms, so I would obviously like to keep myself and all my friends and my family safe and make sure that we're not living in fear in this country. We have a lot of potential in America, and there's no reason why we should go to school and have to do drills that, make us uncertain if we have to text our parents like the I love you text. So, we have to keep our country safe.
Well, I think we're so impressed with your passion, with your stance to be ambassadors and force multipliers for this message and this mission that we're all on together, for visibly wearing the signs of your ambassadorship with these orange shirts and this national movement that we're all igniting and working to push forward. And I would love to learn more about the research you've done and some of the thoughts you have about where we can move the conversation forward. So Jessica, maybe you could start off. Tell me a little bit about your research and what you've learned.
Well, as a group, we researched the billions of dollars that go into the purchase of firearms and how this takes away from the livelihoods of U.S. citizens. We also brought attention to the number of firearm deaths in the United States and found that most of those deaths come from homicides and suicides. Then we brought attention to this issue from a public health crisis standpoint and how our government is prioritizing gun ownership over basic human rights. And there's really no federal regulations or even places that survivors can go to reach out for help. With this, we came up with a solution that could be implemented on a national scale that consisted of mental health tests, drug tests, background checks, and safety courses. And with that, we hope to decrease the violence rate by 70% in about 18 years.
Wow.
Wow, incredible. Incredible. That's an ambitious goal, but I really think, you're spot on and that is something that collectively you can help us do. Raina, I know you touched a little bit about why this is important to you. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so like we were all saying before about the sheer amount of lives lost and wanting to protect the people closest to us, I think that's why this initiative is so important to me and to all of us, because it's 38,000 lives, and that's 38,000 families, and that's way too many. And it's also not even the lives lost, it's also the anxiety that students and people feel when they're going about their daily lives in public. They don't feel safe. Students don't feel safe coming to school to get an education, and that can't happen. We have to come together as a nation and do something to stop that. So I think that is really why this initiative is so important to all of us.
That's so well said, and it's the pandemic that we have been constantly living with as a country for too long. So thank you for sharing that. Rochelle, tell us something that you learned from your research and an idea that you might have that we can apply looking forwards.
Well, in many schools, the topic of gun safety isn't brought up in conversation. Therefore, educating teens about the issues surrounding guns, including things that lead to mass shootings, such as, for example, mental health struggles, preventative measures and counseling to make sure that teens have ways to deal with various forms of mental illnesses, such as depression, anxiety, and so many more. Looking for the signs that somebody might do something dangerous and voicing their concerns to a trusted adult. And lastly, educating teens on all gun-related issues and deaths in this country.
So Thalia, how can we achieve this ambitious goal of preventing gun violence nationally?
Just to piggyback off of like what Rochelle said, I think that awareness is the first big step to really make sure that people are educated on the severity of the issue. We need to make sure that our future generations and the kids in school are very aware and educated of this issue, because they're obviously the ones going to be making the laws and the change in the future. We have to also make sure that we bring this to social media, as we need to, again, bring awareness to the issue a lot more than it already is. So through the economic, the mental, and the political aspect of gun safety, we can use social media outlets to really bring it to a national scale. We can also look at other countries and just like what Jess said, like we did that part of our research. We looked at other countries and we see what they were doing, and I think that's a good way to get some example to see like what our best course of action could be. So we really just have to take a stand as a country and as citizens to say like no more, because no more of our kids should be dying, no more teens should be scared to go to school, and no more guns should be placed in the people who are just not really fit to have them. And as citizens and as Americans, we need to come together and put a stop to all this.
Well said, Thalia, well said. So, I have a question, right? Because as adults, we often, as you've seen, find it difficult to have honest conversations about preventing gun violence. There's a lot of polarization around this. These are difficult conversations that we have. And, there's a lot of different beliefs on which way to go. But we all know that this is not helping our community stay safe. So what advice do you guys have for us, from the student perspective, as to how you can help us have those conversations, whether it be with your own families, friends, or how would you approach that? Have these been conversations that are easy for you to have with your close circle of friends and family?
I don't think that these are easy conversations to have, but I think that the first step to having them is to frame it as a health issue, like the contest did. So when you can come and have that point to agree on that this is not helping our communities and it is a health epidemic, that can bring people to the table, and then you can find common ground and work from there to come up with a feasible solution. I think that that's what you have to keep in mind, and I think when adults are talking about it, sometimes you get caught up in the political aspect of it, and it's important to remember that it's 38,000 lives, and that's the real issue here, and you have to keep coming back to that and remembering that so that a feasible solution can be brought.
Well, like Raina said, a lot of people, when they think of this firearm issue, they don't think of it as a public health crisis. They see more as a government issue. We need to ban guns, we need to implement laws, but I think we need to look more into like the health aspect of it to bring more awareness and to like really elaborate on the complexity of this issue.
I feel like as kids we don't really feel heard, or our arguments often dismissed, and I feel like historically kind of the younger generation's always been right, they just didn't know it yet. So I think definitely listening to us would help a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree with what the other three said. Like, I think that in schools, like, we do talk about awareness, but like, I think a lot of the kids are aware, because that's something you do have to live in. When you hear like, on the loudspeakers, like, this is a lockdown drill, like, what's going on, and whether it's real or not, you're semi-aware of it. It's just really bringing out, making sure people are like more informed and like not to just to the point like, okay, like this might happen to us, like let's be safe. But I think it's really just having us heard. I think people really underestimate like what we know sometimes, and it is really about everybody just coming together as one, because this isn't about people being divided, it's really about like people are dying, and that has to stop.
Natalia, you mentioned the lockdown drill, and I can't help but think about a few weeks ago where so many of the high schools in the area, including here, for the students who are in class, went into a lockdown, lock-in drill because of an active shooter event right here on Long Island, just a couple miles from where we're standing right now. And the terrible irony of the work and your project and then still finding yourselves in that setting. I don't know if you were here when that happened, and kind of what were your thoughts or what was going through your mind as you were there?
It's never fun to hear that announcement on the speaker. Like, you're always just like, oh, like I wonder what it is this time, and you just really hope that like it's not real and that it really is a drill. But then, you know, when you're like, someone maybe says something on like social media and they're like, no, like actually someone had like an active gun, and you're like, that's not that far away from me. Like, you don't know where that person may go. And like, then, I mean, for me, because we literally just did that project like 2 weeks ago, I was really thinking of like, how did that person like get that gun? And like, obviously they seem like, you know, like unfit to use it if this is like what's going on. So like, why is this happening when we're really just trying to keep, you know, like everybody safe? And it just goes beyond like politics, you know? It just really goes to show you that like, we are not safe, and that like we need to be safe in this country.
Yeah, and I think the fear that you feel in that situation is not really talked about as much. You kind of have the lockdown, and then you go out of the lockdown, or whether if they tell you it's a drill, you're more calm, and sometimes people will joke around and things, but if they don't tell you it's a drill, then you're always wondering. And I think for me personally, it's not really, I don't really worry about myself as much. I worry because I know my sister's in the building, and I don't really know where she is and like what's going on. So I always think that like, that's the main thing. You're always worried about your family members, your friends, where they are. And that's why it's such an important issue, I think, because it is affecting so many people.
I feel like, especially when I heard it, I was texting my brother, and he was like, you know, I really shouldn't be texting right now, which is probably true, but I just couldn't help but think, like, what if something happened to him, like how it would cope, what it would do. And it was just very, very, very hard thing to think about.
Yeah, one of my best friends was texting me, and she was terrified, and I felt so bad because it's like, the shooter got any closer to the school, I wonder what would happen if they got inside, if they're outside, like, and like how I would feel. I didn't even know what to feel at that moment, but I knew that she was scared, and like it really like kind of put me on edge.
And it's like, what can you do, you know? Like in that time, you're like, how could I help? But I think that this initiative gave us the opportunity to do that. And it was like, this is how we can help. This is the way that we can calm people's anxiety about this subject. So I think that's why this is such an important thing, and why we're all so excited to be involved in it.
Yeah, and I think it's almost also scary that like kids, to a certain extent, are so used to this. Like honestly, sometimes I don't even know how to feel, because I'm like, oh, like here we go again. Like it's nothing like that's like unheard of anymore, which is like sad to think about, and that like we just have to do better, because like there's no reason for us to like, you know, we're trying to do our AP classes, like we shouldn't be scared if like, you know, there's a potential security threat.
I mean, I know that what you're doing can make a difference, and I hope you know how empowering it can be when you feel like there's nothing you can do, that you are actually trying to do something. And I know we feel that as trauma surgeons. You know, every time we take care of a child or a young person who's been shot, it's a really awful thing. At that point, it's too late. I'm just trying to fix a bad situation and make it a little less bad. So what you're doing as ambassadors and going out and trying to make a difference, that's really what it's all about. By the time someone's been shot, it's too late, right? We're missing it at that point. So that sense that you have power and agency and the ability to make a difference, that helps a lot of us when we face things that we don't really control in our lives. And gun violence is one of those things that we don't, any one of us individually, have control over. So doing your part a lot of times helps us go to bed at night and think about, you know, I'm going to get up tomorrow and make it a better day. So I hope that as you were dealing with that, at some level inside of you, you thought, you know what, I'm doing my part. And that often helps a lot of us as we work through this. I want to thank you all so much for your time, your energy, your passion for what you've done. Congratulate you on the project, the award, and the effort that you've put in. But I'm so inspired by what you're going to do and how you, as a generation, can hopefully make the world better than the generation we inherited and that we're leaving for you. And we're out here on this beautiful day on Long Island with the sun beating down on us, and I think it's a sign of brighter days ahead for us, and that the sky is the limit when we work together to take on a problem like this. So thank you for your openness and your conversation with us today. It's not easy to do this. Even more than of a gun, most people will say they're scared of public speaking. So you took on one of the greatest fears that people have. So congratulations for being ambassadors for yourselves, for your family, for your friends, and for our community. So thank you.